What's up, Panthers Nation? We're back today with another video. Keep pounding. So, I watched some of the interviews of the players, and we've gotten through Tahir Whitehead and Robbie Anderson so far. Um, I'm not even going to bother talking about the cart talk with Teddy Bridgewater because it doesn't hold any reference right now. It's not something that people really need to know about right now. Uh, in accordance to what's going on with the team. Um, so here's the deal. We're gonna start with Tahir. I like that he's willing to play all positions. You know, in the linebacking core, that's definitely a positive. The fact that he knows what he's doing and he's fast and he's consistent, and you saw the video most likely about him where I read his stats out loud to you. Um, so he's consistently started, he's consistently fast, he's talented, and people are saying he's a leader, which is desperately needed. There was a question about how he was going to fill in the shoes of Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis. Actually, there were like three different questions worded differently about that. Um, and he said that he would do his best to step into those shoes and do the best he can uh, and lead this team. But, Shaq Thompson reached out to him. Christian McCaffrey reached out to Robbie. So that's really cool. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Christian reached out to here as well. I could be wrong about that, but I think so. Um, but it's really, really awesome that the leaders of this team that are still here, are reaching out to these new players and telling them, "Oh, you're really gonna love it here. This is a great atmosphere. This is exactly what you need. Here in Charlotte to get yourself uh, out there and get stuff done." Um, the questions I thought were relevant really were how they went about the free agent process, without the meetings, without all that. Um, how are they going to continue to speak to these players, about the playbook? How are they going to get, an idea of how they are as a person? And I like that question because it's very, very relevant right now. Because you're seeing it across the league. It's not easy for the coaches to really get a gauge on the personalities, not just the physicalities, but the person behind the videos that they're seeing. And you can FaceTime them all you want and stuff like that, but it just doesn't do the justice of an actual meetup. So I think that's an awesome question. I also like the one about what are they doing to stay in shape, you know, while this virus is going on. I think that's a very relevant question because that's going to change the routines of a lot of different players in the league. Some of them, like Teddy, probably aren't as much affected. Um, but and Tahir wasn't really that much affected. He was doing a lot of the stuff at home, so that's good. Um, but for some of these other players out in the league, it could be very, very different. So, keeping that in mind, then you got the question about how they're coping with not being able to get out and hit those gyms and stuff like that. And I think that's big too. What are you doing indoors? And that ties in with the other one. Um, to the point where, you got to, as Tahir said, it's a process. You got to distract yourself from the fact that it's a process. And I like that. I really, really like that. I like his mindset. You got to change it up. You got to compete with somebody else. You got to do something different. I like that. That's the type of competitive spirit that we need on this team. I love that. Because we're gonna get um some draftees. They're gonna want to come up here and compete for a job. Um, you know, and due to that new CBA, we can only get 55 active players. So, keep that in mind going forward. One of those has to be a linebacker or offensive lineman, excuse me. Um, the other one they didn't say. Now, again, I'm going to heavily suggest Joe Webb. Heavily suggest Joe Webb. You know, um, based on our current salary right now, they somebody was telling me it was like 13 million or something like that. And my question going forward is, did you take into account rookie contracts, which is about 5 million, probably up to 7 million now in today's standards. So that doesn't leave us much to work with. You're looking at what, one last splash person that you can get in free agency. Which, I mean, free agency is pretty much over now, but I feel like we can use that money to try to sign these rookies now. Um, I think that will be a positive for us going forward. Having that much money and that much lucrative uh, amount that we can kind of play around with rookie contracts and do what we need to do with them. Um, and getting back to player interviews, Robbie Anderson. This is the main event here. Robbie Anderson. I like what I saw in that interview. He was chill. He was composed. He answered the questions well. He knew what he was talking about. And, he's not just a deep threat. He's an intermediate threat. He can be other things than just a deep threat. And he thinks he's going to work well with Curtis Samuel. I believe that. I agree with that. Um, he's worked well with Matt Rule. He talked a lot about Matt Rule. Both of them did. Tahir did as well. Um, about playing under him and what their first impressions were. And I thought those were really the best questions I've heard in a few months now from the media. Because I wanted to know a little bit more about how the players interacted with Coach Rule at Temple before he came here. So I think that's a really cool bit of information that Panthers fans will need to know. Um, and it's basically everything that you've heard already. He's determined. He's tough. He's who he is. And he's a leader. and I think he's going to be a really, really good uh, coach for us going forward. So I think we made the right decision. All that being said, I know that people are still going to be leaving comments about Cam Newton. I know people are going to be upset about that. But we're moving forward. We're moving forward. The NFL is a business. It is a business. You cannot forget that, folks. Everybody wants to think, oh, well, I'm going to get attached to my players. I'm going to do this or that. Well, that's all fine and good. But at the end of the day, when it comes crunch time and you end up in the negative numbers because you didn't get rid of said player you were attached to, that's business, bro. That's business. You know, you can't just sit on a player and, it doesn't work like that. Now, to the issue of trade value. This is a very, very important issue right here. Now, I was going to do a video on this, but because of how crazy things have been lately and how busy I've been trying to do other projects, I was not able to get to that. So I'll address it now. Trade value. Here is a good example of trade value. Kyle Allen for a 5th round pick from the Redskins. That's an example of proper trade value. Now, Kyle is not going to be worth more than a 5th because of his decision making, because of his injuries, and because of the fact that he's only won 4 games. However, the fact that he's won 4 games qualifies him to be worth that 5th round pick. You see where this crazy twist of how this goes and how it ends up with the way of thinking here. You have to have proper value for these players. Otherwise, you're just like, well, I'll just trade this guy for this guy, and it doesn't matter if I get the short end of the stick. And it's just like, yeah. You gotta know how much these players are worth. You gotta know. So here's the deal. And you got Will Grier that has basically the same passing numbers as Kyle Allen, in the little time that he played. Suggests to me that he's worth a 5th. You base it on the amount of time he's played, and Kyle Allen basically played a lot of games, but in that short amount of time that you're basing Will Grier's passing stats. Allow that same amount of time for Will Grier. That's how you know how much a player is worth. You look at the stats, you look at how they play on the field, you look at injuries, you look at salary cap, you look at the whole 9 yards. It's one big picture. You can't just address it by stats. That's one dimensional. That's one dimensional, and you can't do that. That is not an accurate way to represent how much these guys are worth. Now, we did that positional wise with Okung, I feel like. And I know I'm probably going to take a lot of flack for this, but I still think we got shafted. I still think we did. We got the short end of the stick, ladies and gentlemen, on that trade. Now, yes, we needed an offensive tackle desperately. There were some available on the free agent list on the first 3 days. We could have jumped on that, but we didn't. Um, and I know people are going to bash me for this one too, but I think Trey Turner was probably our best uh, offensive lineman after Ryan Khalil left. And it's interesting that Ryan Khalil is still on the free agent list. It's very, very interesting. Um, I don't know how much he's going to ask for, but I feel like he was a very stabilizing force on our offensive line, and it may be worth trying to look into him, depending on how much he asks for. There was talk of Eli Apple not signing that contract out in Oakland. Well, now it's L.A. Raiders, right? Um, so, we're still looking for that corner. We still are, ladies and gentlemen. Which, with the moves that we made, that leads me to believe that we may be drafting a corner in the first round. Now, there is a linebacker option, Simmons from Clemson, that's available. There's a few other players I've got my eye on. And there's a reason I don't do mock drafts on the channel is because, honestly, there's 10,000 different mock drafts out there. 10,000 of them. And, only one of them is probably going to be right on draft day. There's just no point. There's no point in trying to predict what's going to happen. The only way you're going to know what's going to happen is by watching the teams in front of us on draft day. And, putting together your own board. Which, I may be doing that. I may not. We'll see. I did do a mock draft off camera, but I'm not going to share that. Only like 5 people have seen it so far, and those are the main people that helped me with getting information for this channel. And that was because I was looking at specific players that I wasn't familiar with and trying to get info on those players. You know, Draft stuff isn't my thing. I've got someone that's helping me out and sending me information on this stuff. So, um, what I generally like to do is react to the draft picks. And I know I failed in doing that last year, and I'm going to change that this year. Because, one, because we got plenty more time to do it. Two, because I really, really slacked off last year, and it's time to buckle down and really get this channel going again in the right direction with productivity and making sure that I'm not lazy about what content I put out. And that will be forthcoming. As the rounds of the draft develop, you'll see a video. It may be late because I'm looking up players' information, and due to other things going on that, I have going on off camera. Those videos may be a little late, so be sure to check Twitter. That will let you know when I'm going to be posting these videos, or in the comments below, I'll post a comment about it to let you know when those videos will be coming out and how long they'll be delayed for. But those will come out. I'll be doing day-by-day reaction as they come out. And due to the lack of content that's going to be coming out after the draft, I am going to actually go round by round of other teams as well That way, you guys get a complete picture of what this draft is actually like, not just a one dimensional our team, and get an idea of did these teams get what they really needed, in my opinion, versus did they not? You know, how is that going to play out? We'll see. Uh, as many of you know, Gettleman has a way of screwing up the draft and doing something just totally offbeat that screws everybody's draft boards up every draft. So don't expect it to be any different. I've heard some people saying that he may be going after Simmons because they need a linebacker. I've heard other people say that he may be going elsewhere because he likes his what did you call him? I don't even remember. But he likes his beefy guys, defensive tackles, linebackers, people like that. Uh, Probably more defensive tackle is what he's probably going to go for. Um, so I wouldn't bet on him going for Simmons for the main reason that he just shied away from going after Clemson players. If you've watched his 3 drafts with the Panthers, you'll notice he did not draft a single Clemson player. Even though I was protesting it all the way, I said, we need Clemson players. These guys are consistently winning championships. They're consistently playing on a high level, the highest level in college football. We need them. But he didn't draft a single one. Now, it took us 4 years after that. We finally got Ray McCloud on the team from Clemson. So there you go. That's your idea of where that stands. I doubt Gettleman's going to go after a Clemson player. I don't think he will. He could surprise all of us, though. He could completely flip the coin and go for Simmons, but I don't think he will. I don't think he will. The Bucks and Cardinals are going to be interested in him before us, so we need to keep an eye on them, see what they're doing, and hope that he's still on the board. Because I think Simmons is our best number 1 first round choice. Not number 1, but first round choice. If not him, I have my eye on a couple of other players. But if Simmons drops to us, we need to draft him immediately. That's my suggestion. We need him immediately. Now, we did get Tahir Whitehead. However, we are severely lacking in the linebacker department. Yeah, we have Shaq. Yes, we have Tahir. But we need that third guy. I was originally looking at Vic Beasley on the free agent list. But I just had that inkling feeling that he was going to ask for too much money. So I didn't suggest him, and now I feel like we're going to end up playing against him at some point. And that's not a good thing. Because once he gets acclimated to a system, it'll take him a year. But once he does, that man's dangerous. So, being a Clemson fan and a Panthers fan, I know this. Because I've watched him in spring practices. I've on fan days at Clemson. Well, I haven't watched the spring practices because those are closed off to the public. But fan days, yes. And I've watched him play over the years in a Clemson uniform, so I know full well what he can do, and in a Falcon uniform, so I know what he's capable of. That man's dangerous, and if we end up playing against him in our own backyard again, and my theory is he might end up in Tampa. So we got to watch out. They are still making moves, ladies and gentlemen. They're not slowing down. Not at all. They're only speeding up. So if he ends up down there, we could end up seeing him 2 times a year again. That ain't good. With a team that's building on our offensive line, and it's going to be a step-by-step process. It's going to take 3 to 4 years probably before it's fully developed. Um, defensively, same thing. Once we've got all our depth, it may be too late. Tampa may be fully loaded by then. We'll see. We'll just see how things play out. You just got to keep your eyes on the ball, focus on what we're doing first, and then we'll see what happens with the rest of the league then. So that's going to wrap things up. Hope you guys found this informative. If you did, hit that like button, hit that follow button, hit that sub button, and hit that bell so you don't miss any new content. And if you'd like to check out the interviews of the players, just go on the official Panthers page on YouTube. They'll be there. The reporters are doing things by Skype, so or video messaging. So that way you can fully hear the questions that are being asked, and I like that. So so that'll do that. That'll do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of what's going on with the league and what our team is doing with the new players, and what you thought of the interviews themselves. Let me know what you thought. Keep pounding. Stay safe.